There's a kind of strength people never notice. Not the strength that shouts, not the strength that swings fists, but the strength that waits. The strength that listens. The strength that does nothing until the moment doing nothing becomes power. Thomas Shelby doesn't win because he's the loudest man in the room. He wins because he's the stillest. While others panic, he observes. While others rush, he calculates. While others break, he becomes unbreakable. Remember this: stillness is not the absence of action. Stillness is the mastery of it. Stillness is not weakness. It is strategy. People misunderstand stillness. They think it's hesitation. They think it's fear. They think it's a lack of strength, a lack of confidence, a lack of the fire needed to act. But the truth, Thomas Shelby knows better than most is that stillness is not the absence of power. Stillness is power, refined, condensed, sharpened into something lethal. Most men destroy themselves because they fear silence. They need motion, noise, distraction. They're so terrified of what they'll hear inside their own heads that they fill the world with chaos just to drown themselves out. But the man who can sit in that silence, the man who can look himself in the eye without flinching, the man who can wait and measure and think, that man becomes unstoppable. Stillness is not weakness. It's the discipline to do nothing until doing something matters. Thomas Shelby didn't survive war, betrayal, loss, and enemies on all sides because he rushed. He survived because he knew when not to move. When the world tried to provoke him, he stayed calm. When people tried to bait him, he stared through them. When storms rose around him, he stood still and let the storm exhaust itself. Power lives in restraint. There's a moment before every decision where the average man breaks. His nerves shake, his breath rattles, his emotions take control. But a man who masters stillness, he controls that moment. He stretches it, lives inside it. He sees what others don't. Patterns, intentions, weaknesses. It's in that moment that wars are won without a single shot. Deals are settled without a single word. Environments bend to the one who refuses to be moved. Stillness is the art of letting others reveal themselves first. Because when you don't react, they show their hand, they expose their fear. They speak too much, they overreach, they crumble under their own urgency. Thomas Shelby understood this better than almost anyone. The man who needs to act first loses. The man who waits wins. In a world full of noise, stillness becomes a weapon. A blade hidden inside silence. A decision forged in discipline. A psychological pressure that forces the room to adjust to you. That's the thing about a man who stands still. Everyone else feels the need to move around him. Stillness bends reality. When Thomas walks into a room, he doesn't need to speak. He doesn't need to announce himself. He doesn't need to demand attention. He just is. And that presence, calm, silent, unwavering, becomes more threatening than any raised voice or waving gun. Because stillness says, I am not afraid. I am in control. I know something you don't. People feel that. They respect it. They fear it. They obey it. Stillness is confidence others can't fake. It exposes desperation. It reveals those who are ruled by emotion. And it establishes dominance without lifting a hand. Now, here's the truth most never learn. Stillness is a choice. It's not natural. It's not easy. It goes against every instinct that fear tries to ignite inside you. Most people react out of panic. They speak because silence scares them. They move because waiting feels like death. They act because they're terrified of doing nothing. But the one who trains himself to master silence, the one who embraces stillness, becomes someone the world cannot predict and cannot manipulate. A man who controls his stillness controls himself. A man who controls himself controls every situation he steps into. Stillness is how you read a room. Stillness is how you measure a threat. Stillness is how you choose the right moment to strike. Not a second too early, not a second too late. It's not passivity, it's precision. Stillness doesn't mean you're doing nothing. It means everything you're doing is on the inside. Your mind calculates, your instincts sharpening, your strategies locking into place. It means you wait until the moment others don't see coming. The moment only you are patient enough to detect. And when that moment arrives, when the time comes to move, The man who has mastered stillness moves with purpose, with clarity, with force, with the kind of focus that ends conflicts before they begin. Thomas Shelby doesn't win because he is emotionless. He wins because his emotions do not control him. His silence is not emptiness. It is a calculation. His stillness is not weakness. It is readiness. Remember this. Power is not always in the strike. Sometimes power is in the man who does not move, because the one who moves second moves smarter. Stillness sharpens the mind. Stillness. Most people fear it, because silence leaves them alone with themselves. And that's where the real war begins. But if you're going to survive the world, truly survive it, you need to understand one thing. Stillness is not the absence of movement. Stillness is the sharpening of the weapon, and the weapon is your mind. When you sit in stillness, the world thinks you're inactive. They assume you're frozen, unsure, weak. People mistake quiet for hesitation because they've never spent a moment in their own company without flinching. But a man who can sit in stillness is a man who sees everything. Because when the noise fades, your awareness rises. Your intuition becomes clearer, your judgment becomes precise. And the truth that people try so damn hard to hide, floats to the surface. I learned long ago that the world moves fast, not because it must, but because people are terrified of stopping, terrified of confronting their fears, terrified of recognizing that the chaos they blame on everything outside of them actually lives inside them. While they scramble, you sit still. While they rush to speak, you stay quiet. While they drown themselves in noise, distraction, and emotion, you sharpen the blade of your mind. Stillness gives you something rare. A mind untangled from panic, untouched by impulse, unbroken by pressure. Let me tell you what stillness really does. Stillness gives you control over your reactions. A man who can remain calm gains power over any situation. Arguments lose their weight. Insults lose their sting. Manipulators lose their advantage. Because nothing they do pulls you out of your center. You stop reacting. You start responding with intention, precision, and force only when necessary. Stillness gives you clarity. When you slow your internal world, you start seeing the external world exactly as it is. Not through emotion, not through fear, not through desire, but through truth. People reveal themselves in their noise, their insecurities, their desperation to be heard, their hunger to be understood. But a man who observes from stillness reads every detail, their words, their tone, their weakness, their motives. The world becomes a map, and you, calm and collected, are the one holding it. Stillness gives you discipline. Most people can't sit still for 5 minutes without reaching for a distraction. They're controlled by impulses they don't even see. But you, when you train yourself to remain still, you break those chains one by one. You learn to override your impulses. You learn to act on strategy instead of craving. You learn to focus not on what feels good, but on what is necessary. And discipline, boy, is the difference between those who dream and those who build. Stillness gives you power over time. Most people rush because they believe time is their enemy. They sprint through life, hoping speed will save them. But a man who understands stillness moves at his own pace. His timing becomes precise. His choices are deliberate. His actions are meaningful. Stillness teaches you that you don't win by doing more. You win by doing with intention. And finally, stillness gives you inner strength. Not the kind you show, not the kind the world applauds, but the kind that anchors you when everything around you falls apart, when life hits you. And it will. Noise won't save you. People won't save you. Emotion won't save you. But a still mind, a trained, disciplined, cold, focused mind will hold you steady. And in that steadiness, you'll see the path forward long before others do. Stillness is a fortress, a strategy, a shield, a weapon. And the man who learns to use it becomes untouchable. Stillness makes you unpredictable. There's a reason men who act fast lose fast. They shout their intentions, they reveal their emotions, they telegraph every move before they make it. But the man who moves in stillness The man who hides his storms behind a calm face becomes something far more dangerous. He becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. People fear what they can't read. They fear the quiet man. They fear the man who doesn't react, doesn't flinch, doesn't show his hand too early. Because they don't know what he's thinking. They don't know what he'll do next. And fear grows in the space where certainty dies. Let me tell you something. Noise is predictable. Emotion is predictable. Panic is predictable. But stillness is impossible to track. When you become still, you disrupt the rhythm of the world around you. People expect chaos, but you give them calm. They expect emotion, but you give them silence. They expect a reaction, but you give them nothing. And nothing, it is the hardest thing for them to interpret. People get uncomfortable when they can't read you. Their minds start filling in the blanks, and trust me, they fill those blanks with fear, confusion, and doubt. I learned this early. You don't win by telling people what you're going to do. You win by keeping your intentions locked behind your eyes, sealed in a mind they can't access. Stillness keeps your strategy invisible. The moment you speak too soon, the moment you reveal too much, you give the world a chance to interfere. But when you hold your thoughts close, when your expression doesn't betray your direction, your moves stay yours. People can't sabotage what they can't see. They can't prepare for steps they don't know are coming, and they can't defend themselves from a strike they never sensed. Stillness turns your life into a chessboard, where every piece you move is a surprise. Stillness keeps your enemies guessing. The loud man becomes a map easy to read, easy to predict. But the quiet man, he's a fog, dense, unclear, impenetrable. Enemies don't attack when they can't calculate the risk. They hesitate. They second guess. They waste time inventing stories about what you might be planning. And in their hesitation, you find your openings. They lose the element of confidence. You gain the element of timing. One calm mind can dismantle an entire room of loud ones. Stillness protects you from emotional traps. People will try to provoke you, to anger you, to make you reveal the parts of yourself they can exploit. But you, when you operate from stillness, won't rise to their bait. You won't fall apart. You won't explode. You won't give them the satisfaction of seeing your hand tremble. Emotion makes you readable. Stillness makes you untouchable. Stillness makes people underestimate you. And underestimation, it is the sweetest tactical advantage a man can have. Let them think you're passive. Let them think you're slow. Let them think you don't see what they're doing, because while they're busy believing their illusions, you'll be building reality. Their lack of awareness becomes your shield. Their arrogance becomes your cover. Their assumptions become your advantage. And then, when the moment is right, your strike will be silent, clean, and impossible to anticipate. Stillness makes your power feel inevitable. The man who doesn't rush unnerves people. The man who doesn't react confuses people. The man who doesn't break terrifies people. Because he moves as if he knows something they don't. And usually he does. He's seen the outcome long before it arrives. He's calculated the angles. He's watched the patterns. He's read the room. And when he finally moves, the move feels final. Unquestioned, unchallenged, unavoidable. Not because he shouted, not because he threatened, but because he mastered the one thing others fear: stillness. Unpredictability isn't about chaos, it's about control. Control over yourself and over the space between thought and action. And in that space, the man who remains calm, it is the one who wins. Stillness. Is the foundation of real strength. Strength isn't loud. It isn't violent. It isn't the man shouting the most or swinging the hardest. Strength, real strength, is quiet. It's built in the dark, out of sight, where no applause exists and no audience watches. The strongest men in this world are not the ones who bark orders or fill rooms with noise. They're the ones who can sit still with their own thoughts and not crumble. Most people run from silence because silence forces them to meet themselves, their fears, their weaknesses, their insecurities, their unfinished battles. But the man who can sit in stillness, who can remain calm in chaos, who can think clearly while the world burns around him, that man becomes unbreakable. Because stillness creates emotional weightlifting. Every quiet moment is a test. Every moment without distraction forces you to confront something inside you. That inner confrontation is where strength is built. Not in the noise, not in the chaos, but in the uncomfortable silence where you cannot lie to yourself. The world throws storms at you, people betray you, plans collapse. Life hits without warning. Anyone can react, anyone can panic, anyone can scream. But the man who stays still, who takes the hit and doesn't fall apart, he becomes something different. He becomes anchored. Stillness is the anchor that keeps you from being dragged by every emotional wave. It's what separates impulsive men from powerful men. It's what separates the weak from the disciplined. Stillness sharpens your mind like a blade. When the noise fades, your vision clears. You start seeing things for what they are, not what your emotions tell you they are. You read people better. You sense intentions better. You detect lies without effort, because without emotional distortion, truth reveals itself. Stillness gives you the room to think 10 moves ahead. It gives you the patience to wait for the right opportunity. Instead of chasing the wrong one out of desperation, it gives you the power to choose your response, instead of reacting like everyone else. This is what makes strong men dangerous. They don't rush, they don't break, and they don't need the world's permission to move. Stillness builds inner discipline. Every quiet moment forces you to control your impulses, your anger, your anxiety, your urges, your need to prove something. And discipline is the backbone of strength. Strong men don't talk. They don't brag. They don't announce what they're going to do. They just do it. Their silence is not weakness. It's a restraint. It's precision. It's power that doesn't need to be advertised. Stillness is what gives a man the ability to hold back until the moment he chooses not to. And that choice, that deliberate, controlled, intentional choice, this is what separates a warrior from a fool. Stillness turns pain into power. Pain disturbs most people. It makes them frantic. It makes them reckless. But the man who can stay still inside his pain, who can breathe through it, study it, absorb it, he grows from it. Stillness lets you hear what pain is trying to teach you. Every heartbreak, every loss, every betrayal, every disappointment, all of it becomes information, not a burden. Not a wound, information. And information, in the hands of a still mind, becomes a strategy. Stillness creates presence, and presence creates power. When you walk into a room, calm, controlled, and unreadable, people feel it. They feel the weight of you. They feel the discipline behind your silence. They don't know what you're thinking, but they know you're thinking. They can sense calculation behind your eyes, and that unsettles them. You don't need to demand respect. Your stillness earns it for you. You don't need to intimidate anyone. Your silence makes them feel intimidated. Stillness is strength, because stillness cannot be taken from you. Everything else can be stolen: money, power, reputation, people, opportunities. But the strength you build in stillness, that inner steel, can only be forged by you and broken by you. It's the one thing the world cannot touch, unless you allow it to. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it's the mastery of yourself. And when a man masters himself, there is nothing left in the world that can master him. Conclusion. The final word in the end. Remember this: the world belongs to the man who doesn't rush, who doesn't panic, who doesn't let noise dictate his direction. Strength doesn't shout, power doesn't perform, control doesn't need a stage. It grows quietly. In the showers, in the silence, in the stillness where most people are too afraid to go. You don't become strong by dominating others. You become strong by mastering yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. And when you do that, when the chaos of the world can no longer move you, you become something they can't understand, can't predict, and can't break. You become the man who stands while others fall. You become the calm in the storm, the mind no one can read, the will no one can bend. So walk forward quietly, with intention, with discipline, with a silence that speaks louder than any threat, because stillness is not weakness,